Just a really hearty welcome to all of you, and most importantly to Dr. Shavit Sacks. Thank you so much for joining this evening. So I'm delighted to have Shavit join us this evening. I think the topic is incredibly relevant. I don't know anybody who doesn't, I mean, all of us have a relationship with food. Sometimes it's a better one and sometimes it's a more challenging one. And so this is an incredibly relevant topic that has I know has affected all of us at some point and affects us all the time, because that's what we do. It's part of our survival. It's also part of emotional states at times. So as a eating psychologist coach and a naturopath, Shavit is a specialist in this area and has joined us this evening to share her experiences and her wisdom on the topic. So thank you for joining us, Shavit.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here. So I'm kind of just going to talk. Elaine, if you know if any things that pop up as a prompt for me, please go ahead. But basically, let me just tell you guys a little bit about who I am. So I'm Shavit. I am a naturopath and an eating psychology coach. And the two separately are amazing. For me, I obviously qualified as a naturopath first, and then did my eating psychology coaching certification. I think it was 2-3 years ago, whereas I graduated in 2016. To me, I can't see the two existing without one another. Naturopathy is all about guiding the body to an optimal state of healing. As a naturopath, I use things like nutrition, lifestyle modification, supplement therapy, and body work to help my patients. As an eating psychology coach, I've got the coaching side behind me. So for me, I marry the two, and I have a truly holistic way of being able to help my patients. Eating psychology coaching is exploring the mind-body eating connection. How did I arrive here? Like I'm sure everyone or many of you, I've struggled with my own relationship with food, with my own attitude towards food. And when I was at university, we had to listen to these summits to get these points or hours. It was the bane of everyone's existence, but I'm actually so glad that we had to do it, because I came across a man named Mark David. And Mark David is the founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, where I did my coaching certification. And he said something that blew my mind, if I'm very honest. And I'm just quickly going to find it because I don't want to say it wrong. He said the following. He said, assessing the nutritional value of a meal by the nutrients it contains, such as the amounts of fat, protein, carbs, sugar, and calories, is like judging a great work of art by the pigments in the paint. You can only tell so much. There is a bigger picture going on. I'm going to just paste this in the chat if anyone wants to kind of mull it over, read it, and I'll tell you why, because I remember I was watching this on my computer. It was late at night. I was sitting in my bed and I paused and I took a screenshot of this because this was very profound for me. I was like, yes. Oh my gosh, I've never thought about it like this. For me, I was like, yeah, there's a right way and there's a wrong way, and that's finite and it's black and white. And I never really gave a thought to how it's not at all finite and it's not at all black and white. So, many of our beliefs about nutrition, about health, about food and body challenges need a complete upgrade. We live in a world that views nutrition in a very clinical manner. So, yes, there's studies done on this food or this nutrient or this whatever, and the effects of blah, 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 blah. And those are very valid and they're very real. But nourishment supersedes nutrition. And that's where you get this eating psychology coaching, this mind-body eating connection. So, it's like, for me, kind of, when I think about working with my eating psychology coaching, it's looking also at stress physiology. So essentially what happens in your body when it's stressed, and to help kind of reduce that. Because when we're stressed, our body doesn't know how to react well. Now, what is stress? Yeah, sure, stress is like the normal things that we can all think about, right? Like, oh, my deadlines and my finances and my work and whatever. But who here has ever, and I'll say it first, I've done this, looked at a piece of cake or a piece of chocolate and had this dialogue in your mind, right? I should eat it. I want to eat it, but I shouldn't. But I really want to eat it, but I shouldn't. But oh my gosh, I really, really want to eat this, but I can't because it's bad and it's on not the weekend and it's full of whatever. Just like quick show of hands, has anyone ever? Okay. Ultimately, the stress that you're creating by having this internal dialogue of I want to eat it, but I shouldn't, and I want to eat it, what I shouldn't, is worse for you than whatever you think this piece of cake is going to do for your body. Like scientifically, physiologically, nothing metaphysical about it. And I'm so for all that. But physiologically, what is going on in your body is way worse for you than whatever this piece of cake is going to do, right? And when we start to really listen to our body, our inner wisdom, our intuition, we don't need all this external guidance about what we should eat, when we should eat, how much we should eat, what our body feels like, right? We've grown up in this world of like you being told what to eat, because eggs were bad for you and butter was bad for you, but now they're good for you. And don't eat, first was don't eat butter, eat vegetable oils. Then it's don't eat vegetable oils, don't eat butter, it's exhausting. Like I always say to my patients, there is so much noise around us that we forget the self, the me, the human that is actually existing, right? So when we're able to actually tune in and like listen to ourselves and listen to what our body wants, we're going to be able to eat what our body actually wants, and feel fulfilled, feel full, feel nourished, both physically and emotionally and mentally and on a soul level. Has anyone here ever felt like they can't eat a food because they can't control themselves around it? Usually it's like, well, I don't want to eat a packet, I don't want to eat some chips because I'm definitely going to eat 2 packets if I have 2 chips, right? And then you either don't eat the chips or you eat them and you eat the 2 packets. Okay. Me, I've done it, just putting it out there, just so no one feel embarrassed. Like I come to you from a place of complete authenticity, honesty, like I've been there. So, with that, we also have been taught that we need willpower and we need discipline and we must control ourselves around food. It's a load of rubbish. If you feel like eating something, you should eat it. Essentially, it boils down to that. If you deny yourself, if you restrict yourself's food, you're going to want to have things more. I mean, those of you that are parents, you say to your child, don't do something. What do? They do that and more, right? It's that kind of a thing when you restrict yourself. Or another example is you feel like eating whatever, sweets. So you decide to eat an apple instead, right? Okay, but you still feel like eating the sweet. So you decide to eat rice cakes. But then you still feel like eating the sweets. So you decide to eat a banana. I don't know, whatever. You still, it's this like kind of thing where you want this, but you're like, no, but it's whatever. It's not good. It's not this. It's not whatever. When we start putting these rules in place, we take away our own autonomy. We take away what our body is trying to say and we disconnect. And that disconnect is very valid for all aspects of life and not just with food or that kind of situation. So sorry, I just lost my train of thought a little bit, where I was going with that, but I'm sure I'll find my way back. But basically, when we look at our relationship with food, or, firstly, our relationship with food is a great teacher. I'm going to tell you a quick story about a patient of mine that I had, which was, for me, a very interesting patient. So I had a patient, I'm going to call her Jane. She came to me, she was diagnosed insulin resistant. For those of you who don't know, that's like the step before diabetes. She said, I need to get my sugar sorted. Like, need to do this now. Now, the naturopath in me wanted to be like, cool, let's do like whatever. Let's do low sugar. Let's increase fats, proteins, low carb, blah, 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 blah. But there was something in me that was like, there's something else here, Shavit. There's something else that you're missing. And as we got talking, it came up to me that she has a really horrible relationship with food, horrendous relationship with food. She had a horrible abusive relationship. She just got divorced. There was a lot going on there from an emotional side. And I took a step out of my naturopath shoes. I took a step into my coaching shoes, and I said to her, you can eat whatever you want. And she was like, what? What do you mean? No, oh my gosh, what do you mean? Like, I'm not allowed to because I said to her, what did I name her? Jane? You can eat whatever you want. And the progress that I saw with her was amazing. She said that she went home for the weekend or whatever it was. And but what she was always saying as well was like, she's like, I'm so fat and my mom's so thin. I'm so fat and my mom's so thin. And she took 2 biscuits because that's what she felt like. And her mom was like, Jane, do you really think you should eat that? And I was so proud of her when she told me. She turned to her mom and she said, my naturopath told me I could. And for me, that was so great because she said, I ate the 2 and I was happy. Previously, I would have eaten the 2 and then gone back later and eaten a lot more because I felt guilty. I felt ashamed. I felt judged. Another thing with her was she was like, I really want to eat jam, but I'm not allowed to have jam because I haven't had jam in years and I'm insulin resistant. And I was like, okay, so eat some jam. I gave her permission to eat everything. Eat some jam. She came to me in our next consult. She says, Shavit, I actually don't even like jam, which I thought was hilarious. And it's just so true and so poignant that we put things up on a pedestal and then we restrict ourselves, right? We're like, this is the most amazing thing, but I'm not allowed to have it because it's bad, right? And then you actually have it and you're like, not actually that nice. It's like, what was I building it up to be? One of my favorite analogies, and I know a few of you have heard this before, but bear with me that you're going to hear it again. We like to talk about food in moral values. We like to say food is good or bad, right? Broccoli is good. Chocolate is bad. Yeah. That sounds about right. If you asked me this 6 years ago, I would have been like, absolutely. But if we think about good and bad as moral values, right? Shows the moral of something. We realize that there's something amiss there, right? If you take a knife, for example, if I say to you, okay, Elaine, is a knife a good or bad thing?
You kind of want to say it's bad because it can do all sorts of things, but I know it's like,
okay, absolutely. So a knife in the hands of a chef makes a beautiful meal. A knife in the hands of a serial killer is a murder weapon. It's not the knife that is the issue, it's how we use it. And it's the same thing with food. It's not that food is good or bad, it's how we approach it, how we see it, how we use it, and what we do with it. So, I'm busy reading a book. There are actually 2 books that I would really recommend everyone to read, and I can pop them in the chat. The first is Nourishing Wisdom by Mark David. Brilliant book. It started me on like a fangirl of him. And then when I met him on Zoom during my coaching course, I was like, oh my God, David. I literally told them, I was like, I'm fangirling you. And the second is a book called Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribole and Elise someone. Just two books that I would, if this conversation is really resonating with you guys, 10 out of 10 recommend reading those books. So when we think about like eating challenges, and I refer to things as disordered eating behaviors. And I was deep in toxic diet culture, deep in disordered eating behaviors. It's because that's what the noise around us is telling us is good, is right, we're supposed to do. But if you think that the diet and fitness industry is an industry of probably like over $1 billion, I don't take that as probably not $1 billion, but it's a very, very high amount of money industry. Why? Why are they thriving so much? Because they're creating a problem that doesn't exist and giving you a solution that doesn't work, right? Weight loss diets have been, I mean, there's over the years, first was low fat, then we got the Atkins, then we got the other way, we got the Banting and the keto and the paleo and the raw veganisms and the blah, 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 blah. Like fad diets will continue because they're all trying to give you a quick fix for a problem that you don't actually have. And we keep getting the noise, if you don't look like, I don't know, a supermodel, you don't have like the right kind of bum and the right kind of ab definition and the right kind of strength. Because, when I was growing up, everyone wanted to be really, really skinny with a really small bum. Now it's like everyone wants a big bum, wants to be really muscular. Like these things are always going to change. And the more power that this industry is given, the more that they'll have an effect on us. So, I mean, for me, it's about setting boundaries because boundaries make you resilient. I don't think we'll ever be able to completely like smash down the fitness and weight loss industry or diet industry, but it's about making yourself resilient. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, but back to eating psychology coaching and back to that kind of sphere. When we look at, as I was saying, disordered eating behaviors, we're looking at an opportunity to explore. What is my challenge trying to teach me? What am I trying to learn here? What is my body trying to tell me that it's coming up in this way? And that can be attributed to a lot of things in life, like injury, illness, disease, blah, 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 blah. We can always think of it in that kind of a way. And when we work on, when I do coaching, it's about learning and growth and stepping into your power. So it's all about empowerment. It's about taking a disconnect and reconnecting it. And it's very possible. And I tell you it's very possible because I'm on my journey, on my reconnect journey. And I think I'll forever be, I think everyone will always be on a journey to reconnect, because we exist with so much disconnect around us, so much noise to disconnect around us.
Distraction to it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's about addressing like things like toxic nutritional beliefs, something like fat in food equals fat on my body. I mean, I don't know how many of you still do a lot of low fat, fat-free things, don't want to eat butter, don't want to eat chicken skin, whatever. There have been multiple studies that actually disprove this low fat saga that was very popular in about the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And what a colleague of mine said to me, we'd like just started practicing, she was a year above me at university. She said she was noticing that women who were probably about teenagers in the 70s were struggling a lot more with menopausal issues now, however many years later it was, because of this low fat saga that they had when they were teenagers, which is amazing because we forget that everything we do has an effect. And you know, in the intuitive eating circle, they talk about something called gentle nutrition, because intuitive eating gets a lot of backlash because they're like, you can't tell people to eat whatever they want because people are just going to eat shit all the time. Sorry, I don't know if that's what I said. Allowed to eat rubbish all the time. And that's not true. We're taught to think that because someone once told us, like, you know, you must monitor what you eat and you mustn't have X, Y, Z and blah, 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 blah. But gentle nutrition, or so I can't really speak for that because I haven't done the course. So I'll rather speak about it how I understand it as an eating psychology coach and as a practitioner. It's about listening to your body. So the way that I like to explain it to people is, okay, you want to eat something, eat it. Or you want to eat, let's take something, a pastry. You want to eat a pastry, you feel like eating a pastry, you have it here, eat it. Notice what it does to your body. Do you feel good? Do you feel a bit ugh? Does it hurt your tummy? Are you maybe lactose intolerant and there was cheese in there? Notice what's going on for you. And then take it from there. And then next time you can decide, you see a pastry again and you're like, cool, I'm going to eat this. And if it had any adverse effect on me because, you know, I haven't eaten today and this is the first thing I'm eating, or I'm lactose intolerant and there's cheese in there, I know how it's going to make my body feel. And that's a very important introspective activity to do with food, and especially with foods that you have a thing about, whether it's something you've put up on a pedestal or something you have, you know, avoided because it's oily or it's sugary or it's blah, 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 blah. It's something that, I mean, I do to this day. It's like, I'll give you a great thing. Okay, who's ever had a Friezo from Woolies? Woolies Friezo? Okay, they are delicious. I don't know if they're called Friezos, but they're so delicious. Now, I don't know what is in there, but my body does not agree with it. I've had it a couple of times and every single time, my body just hates me. My stomach is sore and I feel lethargic. And after a few times of having it, I was like, Shavit, what are you doing? Yes, it's delicious, but you feel so horrible afterwards. Is it worth it? And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. And it's about creating that dialogue and not having an expectation of what you want or think should happen. So when we work with eating psychology coaching, it's all about looking at who we are as eaters. So we have a lot of information about how to eat. No, not how to eat, what to eat, right? Sure, if I asked you guys, you'd be like, yes, I must eat my veggies and I must have a whatever thingy of protein and must have my fats and my healthy fats and not this fat, and the saturated fats are bad, but actually they're good, but actually we don't know, and right? If I say to you guys what to eat, you'd be like, sure, yeah, rattle off like supposedly healthy meals. And I say healthy because I don't like to actually use that word. But we actually have to look at who we are as eaters and how we should be eating. So I'm going to just address the two. So who we are as eaters is like who I am. Who's this person versus who's this person versus who's this person. If we were in a room, I would be pointing at you guys, but who am I? Who is Shavit Sacks as an eater? What is my internal state of mind? You know, how hungry am I? How full am I? What do I feel like eating? And all those answers and more is going to be different to Elaine, because Elaine's sitting next to me on the screen, you know, or to Amber, because she's on the other side of me on the screen. And addressing that internal state of being and that internal state of mind shows us what is going on. If someone binges a lot, or someone at night tends to just like raid the fridge, who is that person? Do they work from 6 in the morning until 8 in the evening, and this is actually their first time eating? Do they have a 5-minute break once a day, and the only thing they can get is a cup of coffee? That person's physiologically, their body doesn't have enough energy. So of course they're going to go and raid the fridge. It's a completely normal thing for your body to do. It's looking for quick, easy energy. So who is that person, and how can we help what's going on with them? So ultimately, you want to be nourished well enough to be able nourished well enough, both physically and mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. When we talk about how we eat, I don't necessarily mean at a table sitting with your family, but it's like, what is your posture doing, right? If you think that posture will determine good and bad blood flow in the body, so if you're slouched over, I think your organs are in the middle of your body, right? I'm a sloucher. If you slouch over, you squish your organs. Do you think that's going to give good blood flow to your organs? Most probably not. A story that Mark David tells, I think it's in his book, Nourishing Wisdom, is about a man who was struggling with digestion, and he was taking all the right supplements, eating all the right foods, still struggling with indigestion. And what he noticed was that this man was slouched over his food and eating very, very quickly. No matter what supplements you're taking or what food you're eating, that is a recipe for indigestion. So when we think about how we eat, we want to, be sitting up straight. Ideally not to have distractions. I'm very guilty of this, watching TV or on your phone. One of the most amazing things about the Mediterranean diet, which gets touted as the most amazing way to eat, is that what people often don't realize is that who the Mediterranean people are and how they eat. Sitting at a table with their loved ones, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of smiles. It's like an exciting and happy place to exist in. That is, to me, a very key factor of the Mediterranean diet. If you're going to follow the Mediterranean diet, you're going to sit alone at home, watching TV, being upset about whatever, that's not really going to be that healthy for you, right? Because you've still got the stress physiology happening in your body. In all the talks that I do, I always say that stress management is the number one way that we can decrease risk of disease and illness and ailment. And when I first kind of started saying this, I would always feel like it's quite like a hectic thing to say. But if we just look at stress physiology, what happens in your body when you stimulate cortisol and adrenaline, it's just a recipe for dis-ease and disaster. So back to how we eat. I have sent Elaine a link to an ebook of mine. It's free. It's about digestion that doesn't require food, and it kind of addresses the how we eat. Are we eating in intervals that are right for our body? I've done this before where I'm like, I'm hungry, but it's 11:30 and it's not lunchtime yet, so I can't actually eat. Right? I don't know if anyone else has done that, but it's like, it's not the right time. Like, whoever said what the right time is to eat lunch or to eat whatever, dinner or snacks or whatever. If you're hungry, eat. Are you giving yourself, so there's timing of your meals. There's also like giving yourself enough time in a meal. I get a lot of people that come to me that are kind of corporate, and they're like, oh, I'm sitting at my desk eating lunch like 5 minutes because I want to. I'm like, no, absolutely not. First of all, pretty sure that's illegal. pretty sure you have a mandated like 30 minutes. I know I have an HR Nat. Your HR, is that right?
You get an hour a day. For every
Okay.
5 hours, you get an hour.
Perfect. So it is illegal. And it also doesn't give you time, first of all, to like, come into your meal, right? When we talk about being stressed, we talk about existing in a fight and flight mode. The opposite of that is rest and digest. So when we eat, we actually need to be in rest and digest, because fight and flight, which is the like being chased by a lion situation, that is, you know, your blood is like shafted away from your organs and all that kind of stuff. Rest and digest is when your body's like, blood's coming to the midline and you're able to digest your food, enjoy your food. So for me, I mean, I say to people, 15 minutes, if you can take 10 to 15 minutes for a meal, let's say in the middle of the day, like that you should be able to, because that's going to give you time to like relax. It's going to give you time to look at your food, enjoy what's going on, feel the vibe, kind of tune back into your body. And kind of the recurring theme I'm vibing here is tuning inside versus trying to get info from the outside. And that is where I struggle with a lot of patients, because I don't sit on my high horse and say, this is what you must do because you must eat this because da, 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 da. It's about tuning in. It's about like, how does it make you feel? You know, how does it make you feel to do this? How does it make you feel? And that's with anything, with anyone, sorry, not only my patients, but you know, how does it make you feel to blah, blah, blah? How does it, I don't know, how does it make you feel to be like that, to live like that, to, you know, that kind of thing. It's like tuning back in and being like, well, what is actually like, what is the inner me trying to say? Because we're not just like human beings that exist, right? We're not just these like skeletal structures with bone and skin and whatever that just like exist. We are amazing, complex soul beings that exist in this fixed body. And we tend to, you know, that's quite metaphysical, that's quite like, you know, airy fairy, but we tend to disconnect from that because it feels different and it's not mainstream and it's not like what other people are saying. So when you're able to tune back in, you're able to learn what, you know, eating challenges are saying to you. And I mean, I was someone who didn't think I had any sort of eating challenge. I was like, I'm so healthy, I eat so healthy and I exercise. But maybe externally that's what it looked like, sure. But I was also really worried about every single thing I ate. I literally felt guilty about eating popcorn 3 days later, which to me is not the right, it's an unhealthy eating behavior. You know, it's little things. It's like, well, if I eat this, I have to go to gym. If I overeat today, I must go exercise tomorrow. You don't have to earn food by exercise, and you don't have to exercise to like counteract food, because the two need to exist very, very differently. And I guess now would be a great time to talk about movement. So I've stopped using the word exercise and replaced it with the word movement, because to me, movement feels less rigid and less judgy in the sort of diet culture-y world that we tend to exist in. And movement to me is exciting. Movement is freeing. Even if I'm going to the gym and I'm moving, exercising, moving, it's about moving my body how it feels like moving, which also takes a lot of the guilt away. I mean, let me know if this resonates, but like you go to the gym and you do something for 20 minutes and you're like, oh, but I can't leave the gym after 20 minutes because I don't know why not. There isn't really a good reason. But actually you can, because you moved. And if that's how you feel your body is happy with, or maybe if you literally just don't feel like it, you can listen to yourself and you can be like, okay, I just don't feel like it. I've had a long day. I just want to go home and eat my dinner and shower and get into bed. Or, you know, what I've noticed with myself and with people that I've worked with in the coaching facility, in the coaching sphere, is these things are, you know, we talk about eating psychology coaching, but these things often just like evolve into other ways in life. You know, asking yourself like, well, what do I actually want to do today? Like, okay, like I feel like going for a walk. Someone told me the other day that a walk doesn't count as exercise. I was like, since when does a walk not count as exercise? Like, to me, if I'm like, cool, I want to get my body moving, what's accessible to me right now? Walking, great, I'll go put on a podcast and walk. And to me, that seems like a perfectly wonderful and viable way of moving your body.
The blue zone, they speak about movement. And in the blue zones in the world, there are 5 main blue zones. The most, one of the, you know, pivotal aspects of healthy lifestyle is movement. And that's the word and term that they use, because it's that constant movement, because it's part of the flow of life. There isn't the rigidity of the word exercise that is kind of a Western, I suppose, a Western terminology. And it immediately just has sort of a boundary around it, whereas there's a flow to movement that isn't restricted by time or the nature of what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And blue zones are amazing. If you guys haven't heard of them, I would recommend just doing a quick Google of blue zones. Blue zones are essentially these areas where people have where there are high amounts of octogenarians, old people existing, and they're quite healthy, and they get studied, and it's very interesting. So I'd like to talk about something which I feel like it's a bit controversial, but I'm going to put out a statement, and I'm going to say that I am against intentional weight loss, which people are often like, what do you mean? The truth is, a couple of truths. First of all, no one knows how much one should weigh. You don't even know how much you should weigh. Not that you should weigh. It's kind of a made up thing, that we like supposed to weigh X amount of kilos or something. Or, you know, the next step is people are like, no, but my BMI. Well, BMI is actually not a very valid tool of predicting health. It was created by a statistician who studied only white European males. Now, if you think anyone here who has done some sort of science degree or sort of a research thing, you know that when you do a study, you're supposed to kind of get the most diversity that you can. How is studying, you know, white European males giving any diversity to now me being a female, or someone who is not white, or someone who is, I don't know, different ethnicity, different this, different that. And it wasn't even used as an indicator of health anyway. It was, I think he was just trying to chart something. So, you know, it kind of brings me back to like, so how come people are so obsessed with weight loss? Because of this noise, right? This noise that I was talking about earlier of diet culture that's telling you must. So it's not about you must lose weight, but to me, it seems like it's this, you must always be in a perpetual constant state of wanting to lose weight and trying to lose weight with their solutions that are geared to fail. When patients come to me wanting weight loss, the first thing I'm going to look at is health first, weight last, because there's so much that can stunt someone from losing weight, or from attempting to lose weight, or from actually losing the weight. You know, what's your thyroid health doing? What are your hormones doing? What is your stress doing to you? Now, we are all in a perpetual state of baseline stress, especially after COVID, especially with the way most people, I'm not going to say all because it's definitely all, but most people live their lives, which is a lot of time in front of screens, a lot of time just, I don't know, just existing in stress. I mean, screens are a stressor for the body, for the eyes, for the mind. And when we look at how stress, or the stress physiology impacts our potential ability to lose weight, we see that it's like a hard no. Like stress will be like, absolutely not. So we also have to look at it in different levels. So when people go on severe restrictive caloric diets, like there's this like trend of eating like 1,200 or less calories a day, which if anyone knows that, like if you lie on the floor for the whole day and all you do is breathe, you burn about 1,200 calories, or maybe 1.3. A toddler should be eating about 1,200 calories. But there's this like big fad of people eating that amount of calories a day so to lose weight. Now, sure, calorie deficit, important, blah, 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 if one wants to lose weight, but the average person should be eating I think at least twice that. So if you think of like you're only eating half. Anyway, sorry, that's a big tangent. But the point is that we put ourselves in states of starvation that our body actually can't exist very long in. And then you start eating normally, and then what happens? You pick up weight again. There was a lot of praise given to banting, that people lost weight so quickly. And sure, people did lose weight very quickly. But what happened was, if you looked over a year at like a banting or at a well-designed kind of calorie-controlled diet, the same amount of weight was lost. It was just that in banting, it kind of, the graph went like down and then it just like stayed. Whereas in the calorie controlled, you just like slow to a plateau. It's also like, for me, it's like, where does this idea that I need to lose weight come from? Someone says to me, well, my clothes don't fit anymore. Okay, so go and buy a bigger pair of pants. Go buy a bigger t-shirt. Like what is wrong with that? Now, it's taken me a long time to be able to accept that kind of thinking, because I've also been in the throes of diet culture, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with going and buying a bigger size. But again, this noise is telling us you must be small and you must be skinny and you must be tiny. And if you're wearing then you must be wearing a smaller size or whatever. Then it's like the other part of it is often weight that gets stored is potential energy. Your body's trying to do something. Is it protecting you? Oftentimes with people that have been emotionally and physically abused, like sort of domestic violence situations, they'll put on weight because the weight acts as a barrier, as a protection mechanism. That was one of the things that kind of went with was, what is the stored energy trying to tell me? The other thing is that people are not eating enough food, which is like, often that's like, what do you mean I'm not eating enough? Because we should always be eating less, is kind of the message that we're getting from people. We should always be eating less. But oftentimes we're not eating enough for our bodies, what our bodies are going through. If you think that you are burning energy, because also I don't really like the word calories, but we're burning energy just by sitting. I mean, those of you that are sitting so beautifully and listening to me, you're burning energy just by existing. Take on top of that, then you're moving, because you're walking from your home to the car and then to the office and then to go to the whatever you do in your day. And oftentimes people aren't actually eating enough. And when they start to eat more and support their body's metabolism better, people find that they are able to very easily kind of lose weight. But again, to me, that's not an intentional weight loss mechanism, because intentional weight loss can be very, very disheartening if it doesn't happen like this, right? Because Aunt Sally, who did whatever, the Atkins, lost so much weight, But Aunt Sally might be so hungry all the time because she might be malnourished. Or, you know, she's got a lot of brain fog. So if I'm not mistaken, Atkins' diet was low fat or no fat or something like that. People forget that carbs, proteins, and fats play such an important role in your body's functioning. You know, there was a study done on monkeys, and it kind of showed that those that had low
from this woman. Nothing. Didn't you learn that when you eat your
so there was a study done in monkeys, and basically the outcome was something along the lines of those that had that
muted
ate.
us?
You got your voice on.
What would you like to ask a question? No. Okay. Basically, the monkeys that had like a moderate to higher fat diet functioned better, lived longer, had better sort of brain capacity than those that had a lower fat diet. Something as well that we were taught in this coaching course or certification was to be diet agnostic. And that's probably one of my like favorite sort of sentences, was to be diet agnostic. And essentially what that meant was you don't prescribe a specific way of eating, and however your patient is eating, you should be okay with. Now, obviously, there's situations. If people don't do veganism correctly, there's a lot of malnutrition that can happen. There's a lot of sort of brain fog that can happen. Conversely, if people are doing sort of banting on steroids, there's also a lot of malnutrition that can happen. You know, sort of we're looking at like the liver and the kidneys, what's going on there, because there's a lot of protein and a lot of fat that people are eating. And I've kind of taken this diet agnosticism into my daily life and into my practice. And what's very interesting is being a healthcare professional and, you know, being a naturopath. I obviously go out to eat with friends, or, you know, with friends of friends, and people have often said to me like, oh, don't judge what I'm eating. Like, oh my gosh, like, first of all, I'm not going to judge what you eat, because who am I to judge? I don't know this person. And secondly, I'm being diet agnostic because, you know, maybe they're eating the same thing I'm eating, but somehow it's bad that they're eating it because I'm a naturopath. I've often also been asked like, oh, how come you're eating chocolate cake? You're supposed to be super healthy. And I was like, well, because I want to eat chocolate cake. I don't really have a better answer than that. But we have this perception and we have this idea in our heads that we have to eat clean and really healthy, and in inverted commas, healthy, because healthy is such a horrible word, all the time. But it's way healthier to eat a piece of cake when you feel like eating it, even if it's every single day, than to think about a stupid piece of cake that you may or may not have eaten 3 days later. You know, again, it's tuning back into your body. I had someone who said to me, yeah, if I eat a lot the one day, I just go and run it all off the next. And I mean, like I said before, it doesn't really work that way, because we aren't these machines, right? We aren't these machines where we go, what we eat needs to be expended completely at every single moment of the day. People also forget that our body needs energy to exist. Our body needs energy to sleep. Our body needs energy to breathe, to do work. I mean, I know when I was hardcore into my studying, I would be sitting, obviously, working on my computer or reading, whatever, and I would get so hungry, and I never understood why. And then come to learn, your brain needs glucose for energy. When you're using your brain, it needs energy as well. So, you know, the topic of weight loss, just to round off this weight loss conversation, is it's very layered, and it's not really just as easy as, I don't know, cutting off calories or not eating your favorite whatever foods, or your favorite sweets, or your favorite this or your favorite that. You know, for me, it's more important to look at like nutrients. Like, is this person malnourished? What is their fat intake like? Because fat is going to help you be satiated. It's going to help your body work better, especially it's going to help bowel movements, which are super duper important. It's going to help your metabolism. You know, what is the mix of your macronutrients, which are proteins, carbs, and fats? So it's not, people think it's just as easy as having discipline and having willpower and cutting foods out. That's not a very sustainable way of existing. And I'm all about sustainable health solutions, because it doesn't make sense to me to prescribe something that's like super restrictive and super prescriptive, and then for people not to follow it because it's really hard. Because I'm saying, I don't know, you're not allowed to eat all your favorite sweets and all your favorite foods, and, you know, I've cut out coffee before for some patients, and they're like, oh my God, I can't do this. So sustainable health solutions top for me, as opposed to extremism. And I find that there are a few practitioners out there, quite a few practitioners out there, who like opt for this extremism and forget that there's a person, you're a person, and you're not just, you know, supposed to be eating broccoli and chicken or something like that, or whatever, for the rest of your life, because that's really not fun. Like, yeah, like I'll eat like a cake or sweets or chocolate like once, twice a day if I feel like it. And what is really amazing with this work, with this eating psychology coaching work, and I say this because this is a personal story, is that when you're able to look at a food, whether it is classically healthy or unhealthy, and actually feel that you want or don't want it, it's such a brilliant feeling. It is such an amazing feeling to, you know, to look at broccoli, which is a supposedly really healthy food, and just be like, I actually don't feel like this. Or to look at, to eat, you know, 2 pieces of chocolate, where previously I would have had a whole slab, and been like, I'm actually so happy, like genuinely don't feel like I need more. And like a funny story is that I go through phases of loving the mini bar ones. I don't know if anyone's ever seen them. You usually get them in like a packet. They're like, I think half or third of the size of your normal bar ones. And something about just having one is very satiating for me personally. And I was telling someone about it. I was like, oh yeah, can never find the mini bar ones anywhere. I much prefer them. And they said to me, no. I could never buy that and have it at home, because I wouldn't stop eating them. I'd rather buy one big one. And I said to them, okay, but how do you feel after you eat one big one? They're like, oh no, horrendous. I feel so bloated. I don't feel great. And for me, that was one of the first moments when I realized that I was actually listening to my body and being like, cool, I'm really enjoying eating the small bar ones. I'll eat the big bar ones if I feel like it, or I'll eat 2 or 3 of the small bar ones if I feel like it. But ultimately, like tuning into the me is the best way forward. And unfortunately, it's not as easy as just suddenly being like, cool, I'm going to eat anything and everything I want. Because if we are still in a disconnect, we're not necessarily reconnecting that way and going forward. So there is some work that needs to be done. You know, finding where these eating challenges have stemmed from, if possible, or seeing how we can go further with them. There's such amazing tools and coaching tasks that I've learned about, that when I see how they help people, it's just incredible. Like even something as, I'm going to say simple, but it's not simple. Doing something called a food, body, and health autobiography, where you look back on your life and you kind of explore, like, when were you first conscious of, body image, your body, dieting? When did you go on your first diet? When did you, I remember being maybe 9 or 10 and I was crying to my mom that I was fat. Like a 10-year-old. I don't know if anyone here has a 10-year-old child or remembers their kid when they were 10. Like, it's, to me, I very grateful that I have such an amazing mom who was like, who just handled it very well. I'm just going to put that out there. But there are studies being done showing that kids way younger than this are suddenly being like, I'm fat, or I'm, I want to lose weight, or not eating, or throwing up their food. And so we think that kids are immune, but it starts in the home, in my opinion. One thing I want to
interject there and just
yes.
add to this, conversation. I mean, as you're speaking, for me, one of the things that comes up and has come up over the years is one of the things that is really missing is that there isn't, I feel like nutrition should be brought into the syllabus from school, from really young. If kids understood, if us as humans understood the value of food, the scientific value of the nutrition of food, the nourishment of food, it would be a much easier journey than trying to navigate the fad diets as we enter mostly puberty, because that's when their body changes start happening. But I think if that was part and parcel of it, I mean, that would be a phenomenal thing.
Absolutely. And going on, you speaking about bodies changing, what we don't realize is that our bodies are constantly changing. Now, I feel like a lot of people be like, yes, but after puberty, like my body doesn't change. Your body change.
All of us know our bodies keep
Okay.
on.
Your bodies, for if there's anyone that doesn't know, but your bodies are constantly changing. First of all, yes, we'll go from our life stages, right? Child, baby, toddler, child, prepubescent, puberty, whatever, then getting older, etc. Yeah, I didn't want to just blanket as menopause, because men as well, but but we also need to remember, for women with your cycle, your body's going to change through seasons. In summer, you tend to drink a bit more and eat a bit less. It's just what tends to happen because it's hot, right? Whereas in the winter, it's cold. So you want something that's warm and nourishing. You tend to eat a little bit more and drink a little bit less. Your bodies are constantly changing, and we don't give allowance to that. I think that is what is very I really would love for you guys to remember that we haven't been given the allowance to let our bodies change. Especially when we're super duper stressed. Like, just your cortisol being high is going to cause extra bloating or extra weight gain. Hormonally, if you're going to, women that have low progesterone are also going to pick up a bit more weight. The body is trying to counteract what it is being given. And I would like to invite you to give yourself the allowance for your body to change. And I say this as someone whose body has changed a lot in the past 2 years, because I had an injury and I basically stopped exercising because I wasn't able to. And my body changed in ways that I never thought it would change. And it is taking me a long time to be okay with it, because it isn't easy, because there's always, I find with a lot of people, there's always the back of your mind. There's you aren't good enough as you are. Doesn't matter what you do. That's just diet culture talking. I don't know if there are any questions, or if you guys want me to just carry on talking.
To open it up for some questions, and I just want to add to the conversation, and now lead it into more conversation kind of nature. I totally agree with you, and I'm going to go on about that education thing, because nothing exists alone. We are holistic beings. So we have a physical body, a mental body, an emotional and energetic, and everything is interrelated. So, if from the beginning stages, when kids go to school and they start learning about, foods, and there are foods that are healthier than other foods, but the nutritional value, as you go up in the education level, there's no harm done in going into the science of it, so that by the time they reach matric, why aren't they learning about the hormonal levels and the cortisol? And it's not, it's science that's attainable and would be so practical and so important for people to move forward and not get caught up. In addition to that, there is an emotional story. We are all bound by our stories of food. So I understand completely, one of the first things you would need to do with your clients is, what is your story around food?
Yeah.
Which is, and like you say, also people's lifestyles are different, because depending on what it is they're doing, adapting something that can work for them to take them to a better place, a better state of connection with their food, and their bodies. So the emotional component of who we are as we get to know ourselves is very interlinked with our, food. So
yeah, absolutely. And just before I take a question from Tracy, I just want to say, for me, the most important thing is permission. To give yourself permission to eat whatever you want and see how it resonates with you. Because when you restrict, you want more. And when you give yourself permission, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. Or if it's...
That's that thing, where it stem from. The result is why are you saying one needs permission? Why did you not have permission? Why was it a thing? So where was the root of that? Where did that come? Because,
and
to that.
Yeah, and Elaine, a lot of that actually starts at home with parenting.
Of course.
So what I find interesting is watching parents around food for themselves and around food for their kids, and seeing these kids grow up and being able to predict kind of how their relationship with food is going to be. And it's very sad. But anyway, Tracy, yes, your question.
Thank you. Thanks for your whole talk. It's interesting to actually start thinking about things in that way. And it actually happened to me that when I was at the shops earlier buying my things for dinner, I popped a lunch bar into my basket and I ate it now while you were talking. I'm like, yeah, okay, so that's good. I follow this. But the thing that I struggle with, and that this morning, funnily enough, said, no, I'm not going to have coffee when I wake up, because I feel like it's become a habit, and it's not me listening to whether I really want it or not. It's just, I get out of bed and I make the coffee. And I had rooibos tea, but then by the time I got to work, I had a headache. So I had the coffee to cure the headache. So I do feel that I'm not even giving myself a chance to listen to what I want or what I don't want, because there's that thing of habits, and I don't know how to break out of a habit when it comes to food things. And I think caffeine is just something that's different to food and nutrition. So I don't know if you've got anything around that.
So I'll give you a couple of tidbits. So first of all, as much as I'm all about giving permission and not restricting, the only thing I have rules about are coffee. With my patients, I'm just saying with my patients. So unless you guys come see me in practice, just do with this information what you will. I'm just putting that out there. So my first rule about coffee is you're not allowed to have coffee. You're not allowed to have coffee earlier than 2.5 hours after you wake up. So from the time you wake up, you can only have your coffee 2.5 hours and later. Okay. This is because when you wake up, You have, so, okay, a little bit scientific, and I hope that this is, I just want to see, is this the right way for everyone? Like this is the graph, and then it goes like this. Is this the right way or the wrong way? Okay, it's the right way. Perfect. So I'm just going to make it look a bit better. So coffee increases your cortisol levels. That's just what it does. And it's not a bad thing. Cortisol isn't a bad hormone. We love cortisol. Cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning, right? And it's got what's called a diurnal rhythm. So it increases and decreases in the day accordingly. So if we think that this is you waking up, right? Your cortisol is increasing here. Okay, if you have coffee here, what's it going to do? It's going to increase this further and then decrease it back down. So you're messing up with your cortisol levels. Whereas if you have it somewhere around here or here, you know, you're just bumping it up a little bit more for it to continue where it's going. That's why it's 2.5 hours. That's more or less the time when your cortisol starts to dip. The second rule I have is not allowed coffee without food. Coffee is thermogenic. It requires fuel to do its thing. And if we have coffee on an empty stomach, your body's trying to get energy from nowhere. And the second one is you're not allowed more than 2 shots of coffee a day. Again, those are the rules for my patients. None of you are my patients. If you would like to be my patient, we can have a chat about this if these rules don't work for you. When it comes to habit, I mean, habit is a difficult thing. As an ex/sometimes nail biter, it's so difficult to get rid of it. Habit is often something that is done unconsciously, right? Like you're saying with your coffee, I'm sure like you wake up in the morning and whatever it is that you do, you boil the kettle and no, it's like part of your routine. And it's something that you do very unconsciously. It's about bringing consciousness to yourself and you know, having provisions in place. So I say this because I have cut out coffee, which is really the death of me. But what I did was I found teas that I actually liked. Like I don't like rooibos. Rooibos reminds me of university because it was the only herbal tea that was available and it just makes me want to cry. So I love peppermint tea. Now, peppermint tea also kind of gives you that like tingling, like awakening sensation. I've just had to find teas that I prefer or things that I prefer to drink instead. I bought those red espresso capsules that are a lot nicer in theory, but sometimes I have it if I'm really like I want to feel like I'm having coffee. When it comes to breaking habit, it's just about bringing consciousness to it. And also it's about having a next plan. So sure, okay, I'm being conscious that I'm about to go make coffee, but I'm not going to make coffee. So I'm going to have a glass of water instead, or I'm going to have a glass of water with hot water with lemon instead, or I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. Something you can try is it's called the holding technique, where when you've realized that you are doing your habitual thing, you stop, ideally sit somewhere comfortable and just hold yourself, and just breathe and see if anything comes up. This is something Mark David talks about in his book, Nourishing Wisdom as well. I promise I don't get any affiliate from that. I love him and I love his book.
No, it's great. It's great. I love when they're books and they teach from the speakers that they share.
Yeah. So, you know, when it comes to breaking habit, just about bringing consciousness and having a plan, or also, you know, is it really habit or is it stemming from somewhere else? I hope that answers your question. Or if you have any follow-up, please go ahead.
No, thank you very much. Actually, it's made me think of being more prepared ahead of time in the evening for the next morning, like having something on my counter that's a good alternative that feels like ritualistic maybe.
You know what I like to do when I'm really, really nice to myself and really prepared is I'll okay, this is obviously a used tea bag, but I'll just prep my tea bag and my mug next to the kettle. That way it's there. Like literally all you have to do is pop the kettle on, pour it in, and you can have some tea. You know, maybe for you it would be a place to explore, like, what does coffee mean to you? You know, maybe you know, I don't know, it's the only time in the morning where you have time for yourself because you have kids who are kids and kids are demanding. So maybe that's what the coffee means to you. I don't know. I'm just putting things out there, you know.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
You said, you know, it's about that consciousness, and it just really sort of resonated for me, and I could kind of feel the power of that, because I know with habits that I have as well, and I, you know, I also I don't have coffee first thing, but I have other habits, you know, and but there's I feel like if we not only have the consciousness, we put consciousness into an action. Consciousness into an action also dictates you just slow down.
Hmm.
You have a thought, you give it a moment. But when you are in a rush, a rush kind of habit is your go-to, and it's easy to kind of repeat.
Yeah.
But that just slowing down. So what you said, Trace, is 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of prepping something the night before. I see Kerry's also saying, yeah, or, how about decaffeinated coffee, which I'm sure you can jump in and add to, Shavit. But I think in terms of a habit, slow down and prep so that you just have a think, like, is it something I really feel like? You did slow it down and you did have tea this morning. And I also have a housemate who gets terrible headaches when she doesn't have her caffeine. And what she's done to get rid of the headaches is she'll wait till she gets to work. She won't have a coffee, but she'll have a sip. And just that sip will help the headache go away. But that's a different thing to the habit. But I was just thinking, you know, slow down so that you are conscious. And there looks like there are two more. Have a look at the decaffeinated question.
Okay. So just to round off, also have a look at your water intake, because I find when I don't drink enough water, I crave coffee. Just funny because it just further dehydrates my brain. How do I feel about decaffeinated coffee? Oh, so as a human being who's had decaf before, it's just like gross. I'm sorry if anyone likes decaf, but like, I just find like I'm trying to have coffee. So I'm trying to replace it with like something that's like it, but not. And then I'm like, this doesn't do it for me. From a health perspective, I've seen varying information about it. It's not necessarily something that I would say, if you're trying to get with coffee, have decaf. If caffeine affects you, there's still a little bit of caffeine in decaf. I know some people that are heavily affected by caffeine can handle the caffeine in decaf. For me, firstly, it depends what perspective you're going from it. Are you someone like Tracy who's trying to, you know, not be so dependent on her habitual coffee, so you want to change it to decaf? Or are you someone who's really sensitive to caffeine, but you want coffee, so you want to have decaf? Those two are kind of two different, I think, answers, because they come out of me from two different sides, like from a very naturopathic side and a very like eating psychology coaching side. But essentially, if you're trying to cut out coffee and you opting for decaf, it's like trying to eat food that you really like with a burnt tongue. Like, you know that you should probably like it, but you can't even taste anything. On the other side, if you're really sensitive to caffeine and you feel like having a little bit of coffee and decaf does it for you, maybe once in a while, it's not something I would give a complete seal of approval for.
So I'm just going to qualify me having it. I get the absolute jitters with coffee, and I don't with the decaf. But Woolies for me make a fantastic cappuccino with almond milk, and so that's my guilty pleasure.
And I just also want to say, not everything we do with regards to food and beverages has to be for health reasons, right? Like, I think that's where we get really stuck sometimes. It's like, if you feel like having decaf coffee, so what if I said it's not something I would recommend? Like, if you feel like having decaf coffee and you can't have coffee, have decaf. Not everything you do has to be in a pursuit of this unattainable health standard. Because again, I come back to wanting sustainable health solutions, or opting for sustainable health solutions for myself personally and for my patients professionally. Not everything you do, not every whatever you choose has to be because you're trying to be healthy either. For me, like, if I feel like a piece of cake, sure, it's not the most nutrient dense thing, but I'm going to have a piece of cake if I feel like having a piece of cake. I'm also not going to have a piece of cake even if it's right in front of me and I really, really don't feel like having it. And I love cake. So just, yeah.
It's definitely, look, I mean, I think there's definitely value, and I think it is an important component to find out about the nutrition of food. I mean, I think that would be something that is important. And then, you know, get to know oneself and one's emotional needs and where it stems from, you know, so that one can rectify and balance the relationship.
Yes. No, absolutely. I'm not saying that we mustn't opt for, you know, our health.
Yeah.
But I just do want to reiterate, because you know, it is about, you know, like I said, nourishment supersedes nutrition, but nutrition is still very, very important. And giving your body a good like baseline of what you've eaten in terms of nutrients is super important. Like, if you have a piece of cake on an empty stomach versus a piece of cake after like quite a well-rounded meal, you're definitely going to feel better after having, you know, given your body some more nutrient dense food and then eating a less nutrient dense food. But for me, it's about sustainability. It's about living in this world in a sustainable way that's not going to make you feel like you're, you know, missing out, or you can't have cake at your, whatever, your friend's birthday tea, or you can't this because you're trying to be good or you're trying to be healthy. That's what I mean about sustainable health solutions. It's about finding the balance of it all, essentially, and finding a balance that works for you, because what works for me personally might not work for you, or might not work for the next person. And I mean, that's also what I work a lot with my patients is, what are the obstacles that are coming up in my treatment plan, and how can we either educate? So unfortunately, sorry, you have to do this for X amount of time. This is why, this is the education. Or it's about being like, okay, you're struggling with this. Let's find a way to make it easy. Like when I started off practice and I had an IBS patient and I cut out coffee for her, she came to me and she was like, Shavit, I can't. Look, 1 coffee a day, I just need it. And I said, cool, go for it. 1 cup of coffee a day is not going to hinder her. And it didn't hinder her healing anyway. So, you know, it's about not being rigid, and it's about finding sustainable solutions.
Also, what you said is starting to just become aware of how you feel when you eat certain foods.
Yeah.
And the state of mind you're in. So more awareness, like the state of mind you're in, how you feel physically when you've eaten that food. You know, depending on where you are, there could be, you know, are we eating it emotionally? Or when you eat something and physically it actually has an effect on you. So that awareness is such a crucial thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to open up to all of you. Is there anyone that wants to ask Shavit a question, add to it, share an experience? I'm going to just check.
If this helps, like we've obviously spoken a lot about kind of the mind-body eating connection, but you know, as a naturopath, I deal with a lot of other things, gut health, hormone health, stress, burnout, fatigue, that kind of stuff. So even if you have questions surrounding that, let's see, go for it.
One.
So something I don't mind me jumping in. Hi. So as someone who's actually heard Shavit speak a few times since she started giving these talks and things, it's always been really great to see how every time she gives these talks, the more information she gives and things. And what's always kind of helped me is, well, not helping, but like there's always certain things that kind of have stuck with me over the years. So a lot of the things of like, if you want, like when she's talking about like, if you really want that piece of cake, or you feel like it's just on your mind. I don't know if anyone else has that just for days and weeks on end, all you're thinking about is having that one thing, and you won't be satisfied until you have it. And I think it was one of the first talks that you gave a few years back that's kind of, you said something along the lines of maybe you're really wanting that one thing because your body's trying to tell you about something else that you need. Maybe you really want that piece of chocolate cake because your body needs energy. Maybe you really want that chicken or something or whatever it is because you're feeling very fatigued and things like that, and kind of seeing with that intuition of like, maybe there's something more to why you really want, or you always go back to that, I really want that cookie, but why do you want that cookie? Why do you want that peanut butter cookie? Maybe you just want more fat in your diet. Maybe your brain's just like, I'm hungry for this kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with, so I think I went on a tangent and then lost my train of thought of what I actually wanted to say. But that's kind of just a summary of from the talks, like these little tidbits, they kind of come back to you even without you thinking about it. And it's like, it's never too late to start thinking this way, or like, I don't want to say correcting behaviors, because it's not about like she's been saying right or wrong, but it's never too late to be like, however old you are, being like, and if I want to have that thing or whatever, or even going back to things of like, where do you hear these things with diet cultures and things like that, if it's from parents or things like that, like being like, it's never too late to be like, you know what, you have your opinion, that's fine, that's nice, but that's not how I'm going to live my life.
And just to jump on that, if someone is finding that they're firstly going on this journey alone, you don't have to. You definitely don't have to, but there'll always be, when boundaries in all psychological aspects, there'll always be stuff around. And ultimately, what you want to do is build your own resilience, so that, you sitting at brunch with a friend and other girls who are part of a wedding. This is a true story. And our food comes and everyone starts to go, oh, I should have started my diet yesterday. And which is a very triggering comment for me, but it's fine. I just sat there and I took a breath and I said to myself, Shavit, this is not about you. This is about them. This is their stuff to deal with. And that's okay. And I was very proud of myself, actually, because it's not easy to have that, to not be like, oh yeah, absolutely, me too, because everyone's saying it. So if you are finding that there's this noise, you need to build up your boundary and build up your resilience to be like, okay, like what's yours is yours and what's mine is mine. And I don't want to be a part of that right now.
Also, to slip in comments to people who make it. I do it with my parents sometimes when they're like, oh no, then I'm like, no, but it's fine. Just do it. Just eat that chocolate. It's okay.
Yeah. Parent your parents.
It's something that there's a, in society, like all the time, there are adverts about food, there are adverts about different fads, about different trends that are available. So it's something that, like, all the time you have to acknowledge where you are with your relationship to food in your body.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it boils down to. So at what point do you want to, and I am going to use the word, have a healthy, because what I mean by that is a balanced relationship with your food and body. So I will share a story because I'm at a different point in my life to some of you. Having gone through teenagehood, and there were a lot of triggers. A, your body changes hormonally. B, there was a lot of family pressure, actually, growing up with what you can eat, what you can't eat, which made me just want to eat more. It's the, I call it the Garden of Eden syndrome. You know, the more you told you can't have it, the more you want to have it. So it made me like sugar now, mad. I found what I did when I was at varsity, which was very empowering, is I went away from home. That was empowering. And then I would often go to the cafe if I wanted a chocolate and get whatever I wanted, which was a whole new world that was never given permission when I was living at home. And I had it around. If I wanted to eat it, I could. So that helped me go through a couple of things. Anyway, moving on, things just got easier and easier getting into adulthood. And I happened to be a very, very active person because my work was very, very active. And then my little bump in the road was going through my cancer journey and chemo. Specifically, and why I say chemo specifically is because, you know, there are two things that happen to your body, and it depends who you are, what kind of nature your chemistry your body goes through, it has, and what age you're at when you go through it. So you either can lose a tremendous amount of weight with chemo or put on, which I never thought was a consideration, but yes, it happens because of the level of inflammation. But what happened is there was a complete revisiting of this puberty time and of you're not allowed. And when you go through a very extreme health condition, you can't have things and you can't have them. You can't go, oh, well, I'm going to have that piece of cake. You can't have that piece of cake because that sugar will kill you. And there I'm going to kind of put my foot down and say, you want to get through cancer, well, you eat properly. Because it really gives you power, and it really, I mean, you might want to because you're so depressed, but I can tell you either want to live or you want to die, and it makes such a difference because it feeds the cancer. And I wanted to do, you know, when you go to that point of like, you want to live, it didn't really matter. No amount of craving for a little piece of chocolate or whatever was going to. So I was really good with it, but I really got so inflamed. But it wasn't what I was, you know, I ate well, but it was this emotional component, this revisiting of this, my younger years of puberty and the guilt, the Jewish guilt, the cultural guilt, the, you know, the quantities I had to look at because I was told I couldn't have, I would have, you know, double. None of it felt good. I would literally hurt myself eating too much. It's still my problem. I still have to always have two you know, seconds. Why do I always have to have seconds? It's part of the psychology. But it was a really interesting time because I really had to painfully go through this for a year and a half with chemo and 2 years to come and make peace with it and come back to getting to a state of comfort again, good relationship with food, good relationship with my body, because I had to get rid of the inflammation. So the emotional thing is such a heavy component, and where it comes from, and when it isn't addressed, I think when you can't get to the root of it or own it or say it, it can crop up later on. I was completely shocked that it could come back in my 40s and, you know, mid 40s, and literally just before I was like at my happiest, most content. But yeah, that emotional thing has quite a bit of power. So what you're speaking about is getting your power back. Of course, now I can live in a very, like a lot more of a balanced, it's not extreme, but I err to the side of good nutrition because I love the feeling it gives me. So but it's, yeah, that emotion,
and that's important because you are noticing how your body's feeling.
yeah, well, that's why I needed to go through the chemo. For me, I believe that I needed to go through the chemo of it because that meant the process went on for longer for me to learn more.
Yeah. You know, if you look at children, like toddlers, kids, they're like the OG intuitive eaters. If you watch a kid, toddler, maybe 5 years old, 6, they will eat whatever they want, like genuinely whatever they want. And if parenting from an eating perspective has been done well, yeah, maybe there'll be one day where they eat more potatoes, and then the next day they eat a bit more veggies, and then they also have some whatever sweets they're allowed to have. But if you there was a study done, and if you on kids, that sounded weird, it was obviously ethically all right, but if you kind of took a week of how they ate, they had a very well balanced diet. And people often think that they need to constantly like watch what their kids are eating, when kids are like the OG intuitive eaters. I mean, a baby is going to eat like a baby, whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding or whatever, like they're going to eat until they're full, and then their chances are they're going to stop. And they also use food as comfort. Those of that have had babies or been around babies, they've got like a comfort feed or a comfort suck, or often they're given a dummy for that purpose. But it's just amazing if you just watch kids, like they know what they want. They're like untouched by diet culture and untouched by weird food rules. And there's so much we can learn from children, and how they eat and who they are as eaters. So it's really beautiful.
Eating, it's such an innate, natural thing. So it's getting back to that. I totally hear you on that. I kind of feel like it's taken me, all that time to now I'm in a place where I can get back to an understanding what intuitive or living according to a more intuitive program.
And just if I can say, sorry, one last thing, and then I feel like we're wrapping up, but what I always say to people is that, like, we live in this world, this modern day world where we have access to a lot of junk food and a lot of processed food. We have access to, non-organic fruits and vegetables, or meat that's got a bit of whatever in it. We don't live in a world where we have easily accessible organic foods. And for those that eat meat, we like have our own cattle and whatever, and we do it ourselves, and we grow our own this. And there's a lot around us that we seem to demonize when it's around us, and there's not nothing we can do about it, but we need to kind of give it the space that it deserves. If we all lived on a village and we worked the land and we milked the cows, and we wouldn't have like chocolate or whatever around us, because it just wouldn't be something that would be accessible to us. So it wouldn't even be a consideration, but it's a consideration now. And like, I love chocolate. So it's just kind of, I guess the point of me saying that is meeting yourself where you're at, and understanding that we live in this world. We live in this world where that, like, those people that worked until 7 and then hopped on this at 7:30, like, did y'all have time to eat? Were you supposed to have made dinner already? Like, there's so much to consider, and people like to look at our lives and think that we live in a world where all this healthy food is made for us and it's so easily accessible. And sometimes it's not, because if you are, rushing home from work and you're so hungry and you're going to pop to the shops and buy a sandwich, that's better than not eating anything. Yeah, sure, if you had like a nice roast vegetables and the blah, 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 that would be better, maybe. But if that's what's accessible to you right now, it's better to be fed than not. I have a blog that I have written very interesting things, at least I think interesting, if you guys are wanting to read more stuff. And yeah, any other questions, or Elaine, any other topics?
No, it's just been fascinating, hence the fact that a lot of people have stayed on listening. I'm going to just open it up, see if anybody wants to ask the last question for the evening. You did mention that you sent me an ebook. Did you send it via email or WhatsApp?
WhatsApp. But what I can just do is if you want me to just pop it in the chat.
So no, so you can put it into the chat, but if with the resend for me just in that WhatsApp, and what I'm going to do to for all of you is, and then Shavit, if you can just give your email address and whatever contact details. So I will put it into the group. I'll send it to all of you tomorrow morning so you can get hold of Shavit if you want to. And those of you who want to continue coming and listening to very interesting speakers, I do this once a month. I know there are quite a few new faces here. Please take down my cell phone number and just pop me a WhatsApp. For those of you, just I did put it right in the beginning. Otherwise, you can just write down 0832593086, and that's my WhatsApp number. I can see people are leaving fast and furiously. So before they all go, I want to say an amazing thank you so much, Shavit. That was a beautiful evening. So insightful, so interesting. You clearly very passionate about your, and Cara B is agreeing about the topic. Natalie sends love and loved it. Mara's waving. So I know it was an amazing evening. Kelly says fantastic, and she agrees. So thank you so much for coming on. Just a pleasure to have you, and feel free to come and join the kitchen anytime. So thank you everybody.
Thank you